Hi, my name is Robert and I'm 67 years old. On my birthday this year, my son sent me a fine bottle of whiskey. Something special, something he thought I would enjoy. But wanting to be polite, I handed it to his father-in-law at our family dinner. It felt like the right thing to do at the time, until I realized that one small gesture would set off a chain of accusations, betrayal, and a family war I never saw coming. That bottle of whiskey nearly tore everything apart. But before I tell you how this nightmare unfolded, let me ask, have you ever done something innocent, only to be accused of disrespect or betrayal? Share your story in the comments, and let me know where you're listening from. I'd love to thank you personally. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for a story that will shock you. I never thought a simple birthday gift could change my life. At 67, I believed I had already seen enough drama, enough hardship, and enough loss to last a lifetime. I had worked my hands raw in construction for over 4 decades, saved every penny I could, and built a modest home for my wife and son. I wasn't rich, but I was proud of what I had achieved. My son Daniel was the crown jewel of my life. After his mother passed away, it was just the two of us. I poured every ounce of my energy into raising him right, making sure he studied hard, stayed out of trouble, and never felt the emptiness that comes when you grow up poor. And he didn't disappoint. Daniel became a successful engineer, the kind of man his mother would have been proud of. When Daniel married Claire, I thought my life would finally find peace. She was beautiful, educated, and came from a wealthier family. Her father, Mr. Collins, was a businessman with a reputation for being sharp, proud, and sometimes arrogant. Still, I welcomed them both. I told myself that families are built on love and respect, not money or status. But over time, I began to feel the gap between us. Claire's family carried themselves as though they were above me. At gatherings, Mr. Collins always found a way to remind me of my simple background. "You did well for a man without a degree," he would say, with a smile that wasn't really a smile. "Daniel must get his brains from his mother's side." The others laughed politely, but I never missed the sting. I let it pass, every time. I told myself, "Robert, don't ruin your son's happiness. Keep quiet." Still, the distance grew. Claire began to take more after her father than after Daniel. She developed a taste for expensive things, and though Daniel earned well, it never seemed enough. Their family dinners turned into competitions, whose house was grander, whose vacations were more exotic, whose wine collection was more refined. I often sat silently at those tables, clutching my old coffee mug, while they debated the merits of imported champagne. So when my birthday approached this year, I expected little more than a polite dinner, maybe a card. But Daniel surprised me. He sent a beautifully wrapped box containing a rare bottle of whiskey, aged, expensive, the kind of gift a man knows his father will treasure. I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't just whiskey, it was a symbol. My son had remembered me. My son had cared. When Claire saw the bottle, she raised her eyebrows. "That must have cost a fortune," she said. "Well, at least Daniel knows what people in this family deserve." Her words stung, but I brushed them aside. I told myself not to let her ruin this moment. I wanted to enjoy it. The day of the birthday dinner came. Daniel and Claire hosted it at their house, inviting both sides of the family. The dining table gleamed with silverware, crystal glasses sparkled under the chandelier, and laughter echoed through the hall. I sat there quietly, watching Daniel beam with pride as the families mingled. And then, in what I thought was an act of courtesy, I did something that would change everything. I stood, lifted the bottle of whiskey Daniel had gifted me, and said, "This is too fine to keep to myself. Mr. Collins, I'd like you to have it. Let's share it together tonight." It felt polite, generous, even wise. After all, wasn't sharing what families did? Mr. Collins smiled broadly as I placed the bottle in his hands, but from the corner of my eye, I caught the flicker of something else. Claire's sharp glance, her lips curling as if she had just witnessed a betrayal. At that moment, I didn't realize what I had done. I thought I was simply being respectful. I thought I was bringing the families closer, but I was wrong, dead wrong, because that one small gesture, the act of giving away my son's gift, would be twisted, poisoned, and used against me. What I believed was kindness would soon be painted as insult, and the war that followed would tear apart everything I thought I had built. At first, the dinner carried on, as though nothing unusual had happened. Guests laughed, silverware clinked against porcelain plates, and the smell of roasted lamb filled the dining room. Mr. Collins held the whiskey bottle proudly in his hands, reading the label aloud to anyone who would listen. "Aged 18 years, he announced with satisfaction. "This is a rare one, a real man's drink. Robert, you've got good taste after all." I smiled faintly, trying to ignore the backhanded compliment. I wasn't looking for praise. I simply wanted to keep the peace. But as I glanced toward Claire, I noticed her expression. Tight-lipped, eyes narrowed, her fork stabbing at her food. I knew that look. Trouble was brewing. After the main course, as the plates were cleared and conversation shifted to lighter topics, she finally spoke. "Daniel," she said sweetly, but her voice carried an edge. "Isn't it strange that the gift you gave your father ended up in someone else's hands before you even shared a drink together?" The room fell quiet. Daniel frowned, clearly confused. "What do you mean?" She gestured toward her father, who was still admiring the bottle. "You worked so hard to choose that whiskey for him, and instead of cherishing it, he just handed it away, as if it meant nothing." A murmur spread among the guests. I felt my stomach twist. "That's not fair, Claire," I said calmly. "I wasn't rejecting Daniel's gift, I was sharing it. What's the point of fine whiskey if we don't enjoy it together?" But Claire shook her head, her voice rising. "No, Dad, you don't see it. He embarrassed Daniel in front of everyone. He made it look like your gift wasn't good enough to keep." I turned to Daniel, desperate to explain. "Son, that wasn't my intention." "But—" Claire cut me off, her tone sharp as a blade. "You've always done this. Every time Daniel tries to do something special, you dismiss it. Do you even realize how hurtful that is?" Daniel's eyes darted between us, uncertainty clouding his face. "Dad, did you really mean to just give it away?" The weight of the room pressed down on me, dozens of eyes watching, waiting for me to defend myself. My mouth went dry. "I meant to honor the gift by sharing it," I said firmly. "That's all. I thought it was the respectful thing to do." But Claire wasn't finished. She leaned closer to Daniel, lowering her voice just enough for others to hear. "This is what I've been telling you. He doesn't value what you do. He doesn't value you." Her words struck me like knives. For years, I had sacrificed everything for Daniel, worked double shifts, skipped meals, given him my all. And now, in front of his in-laws and friends, I was painted as ungrateful, dismissive, even cruel. Daniel rubbed his temples, clearly torn. "Please, not tonight. It's Dad's birthday. Can we just drop it?" But the damage was done. The laughter at the table had died. The warmth of celebration had curdled into tension, and though no one said it out loud, I could feel the judgment hanging in the air. Robert insulted his own son's gift. When the guests finally left, I hoped the matter would be forgotten. But it wasn't. Over the next week, Claire made sure that whenever Daniel and I were in the same room, she brought it up again. "Remember how embarrassed you looked when your dad gave away your gift?" she would say with a smirk. "People are still talking about it." She whispered poison into his ear day after day, until even Daniel's tone toward me began to change. One evening, he confronted me directly. "Dad, why did you do it? Why give it away like that? It felt like you didn't care." My chest tightened. "Daniel, I care more than you'll ever know. That whiskey wasn't about me, it was about family. I thought sharing it would bring us together. I never meant to hurt you, but he only sighed, his shoulders slumping. Claire thinks you don't respect me. And honestly, sometimes I wonder if she's right. Those words broke something inside me. My own son, the boy I had raised, alone, the boy I had sacrificed everything for, was doubting my love because of a bottle of whiskey. From then on, things spiraled. Mr. Collins, sensing weakness, began making sly comments whenever we crossed paths. "Careful with your gifts, Daniel," he'd say with a laugh. "Your father might hand them over to me again." Everyone laughed, except me. The joke spread like wildfire through the family. I became the punchline at gatherings, the subject of whispers behind closed doors. Every smile I saw carried a hidden smirk, but it wasn't just humiliation, it was division. Daniel stopped visiting me as often. When he did, his conversations were shorter, colder. And Claire, she seemed to grow bolder, her respect for me vanishing completely. What had started as a simple act of courtesy had become a weapon, sharpened by Claire's tongue, wielded by her father, and now cutting straight into the bond between me and my son. The bottle of whiskey had sparked a war. And I, the man who had only wanted peace, suddenly found myself standing at the center of a battlefield I never asked for. For weeks after the dinner, the air between Daniel and me grew colder. Conversations that once flowed easily now felt forced, tense, as though every word might spark another fight. The bond we had shared, built over decades of sacrifice, was fraying before my very eyes. And the worst part? It wasn't just Daniel drifting away. It was the fact that he believed Claire's whispers more than he believed my truth. One evening I invited him over to my house. I made his favorite stew, the same recipe his mother used to cook when he was a boy. I hoped that maybe, just maybe, the memories would soften his heart, but when he arrived, he barely touched his food. He sat across from me, arms folded, eyes avoiding mine. "Dad," he began after a long silence, "we need to talk." My stomach sank. I already knew what was coming. "Claire says..." He hesitated, then pressed on. "Claire says you've never really respected me, that you think I'm weak, that I can't provide the way you did, and giving away that whiskey, she says it proved it. She says you were mocking me in front of everyone." The words hit me like a hammer. I leaned forward, my voice trembling. "Daniel, that's not true. You are my son, my pride, my greatest accomplishment. Everything I have ever done was for you. That whiskey," I swallowed hard, "that whiskey was never about mocking you. It was about honoring family. I thought sharing it would show respect, not insult." But Daniel only shook his head. "Dad, you don't see it. You embarrassed me. You made me look small in front of Claire's family. Do you have any idea how that felt?" My heart cracked. "And do you have any idea," I whispered, "how it feels to be accused by your own child after a lifetime of sacrifice? Do you know what it's like to be treated like a stranger in your own family?" For a moment, silence hung between us. Then Daniel stood, pushing his chair back. "I think maybe it's best if we don't see each other for a while, until things calm down." He walked out, leaving his untouched stew on the table. I sat there alone, staring at the bowl, the steam rising like the ghost of a memory. That was the moment it hit me. I had lost him. The whiskey wasn't just a gift anymore. It had become a wedge, driven deep into the heart of my family. And Claire was the one holding the hammer. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling decades of love and sacrifice unraveling with every tick of the clock. The humiliation, the betrayal, the loneliness, it all pressed down on me like a weight I could no longer carry. But somewhere in that darkness, a spark ignited. If silence had brought me here, then silence would destroy me. I couldn't let Claire win. I couldn't let her poison take my son away forever. I sat up, clenched my fists, and whispered to myself, no more. From that moment, I knew I would not be the quiet, defeated man anymore. I would fight, not with shouting, not with violence, but with patience, with proof, with the truth. Claire thought she had won. She thought a single bottle of whiskey had given her power over me. But she had no idea that her game had just pushed me to the edge, and a man with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous of all. After Daniel walked out that night, I sat in the silence of my kitchen for hours. The stew had gone cold, but I couldn't bring myself to move. My son, my only son, had chosen to believe the poison whispered into his ear instead of the truth that lived in my heart. But grief slowly hardened into resolve. Claire thought she had driven me into a corner. She thought I would either surrender or disappear quietly. She didn't realize that the years I spent surviving hardship had given me two powerful weapons: patience and observation. So, I began to watch. I paid attention to the smallest details: her tone when she spoke to Daniel, the calls she took in the hallway, the envelopes she hid in her purse. I said nothing, but I noticed everything. And soon, patterns emerged. Every week, Claire and her father had private conversations when Daniel wasn't around. Their voices were low, but not low enough to escape my ears. I'd catch fragments, words like property, inheritance, and transfer. My blood ran cold each time. One afternoon I passed by the living room and heard Claire speaking sharply into her phone. "No, not yet," she snapped. Daniel still trusts him, but once we convince him that his father's unfit to manage finances, it'll be easy. He'll hand over the house, the accounts, everything. Just give it time. I froze in the hallway, every word searing into me. So that was their plan. The whiskey fiasco hadn't been an accident. It was a calculated move to make Daniel doubt me, to paint me as careless and disrespectful, so they could control him completely. That night, I opened a drawer in my bedroom and pulled out a small notebook. On the first page, I wrote one word in bold letters: proof. From then on, every time I overheard something suspicious, I wrote it down: dates, times, conversations. I collected receipts that didn't add up, noted sudden withdrawals from joint accounts, and quietly photographed documents Claire left lying around. Still, I needed more, so I bought a cheap recording device. I hid it under the couch cushions, beneath the dining table, even inside a decorative vase in the hallway. At first, I wasn't sure it would work, but within days I had captured her voice, sharp, cruel, unmistakable. On one recording she laughed. With her father. He's old and stubborn, but Daniel's already halfway there. A little more pressure and he'll agree to move him into a nursing home. Once that happens, the house is ours. My hands shook as I replayed the words over and over. The woman I had welcomed as a daughter was plotting to lock me away like I was nothing more than a burden. But instead of despair, I felt a strange calm. Because now I had her words. Not just suspicions, not just accusations. Solid, undeniable evidence. I didn't confront her, not yet. That would have been too easy for her to twist. She was clever, manipulative. If I showed my hand too soon, she would spin another web of lies and Daniel might fall for it again. No, I needed to wait. I needed her to think she was winning. So I played my role. When she mocked me, I smiled faintly. When she demanded things, I nodded quietly. When she paraded her father around as if he already owned my house, I said nothing. On the outside I looked broken, defeated. But inside I was sharpening my sword. Weeks passed and my notebook filled with entries, my recorder filled with files. Piece by piece, her mask was coming off, and she didn't even know it. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. Claire announced that she and Daniel would be hosting another family gathering. Her father would be there, along with friends, neighbors, and relatives. I realized immediately this would be my battleground. In front of everyone she wanted to impress, in front of Daniel himself, I would reveal the truth. Not with accusations, not with shouting, but with her own words, her own actions. The whiskey had started this war, but I was going to finish it. The weeks crawled by, each day heavier than the last. Claire walked around the house as though she were queen, her father visiting more frequently, his smug presence suffocating the air. Daniel, caught between us, grew distant. But I stayed quiet. I kept writing in my notebook, kept recording their whispers. Patience, I reminded myself, patience. One evening, as I was walking past Claire's study, I heard her laugh, low, triumphant. I paused, heart pounding, and leaned closer to the door. "Don't worry, Father," she was saying. "The paperwork is almost ready. Daniel just has to sign, and then we'll have control of everything, his accounts, his father's house, even the pension. Once that's done, the old man won't be able to touch a cent." My breath caught. Paperwork? Control of everything? Her father chuckled. "And Daniel still believes this is all for his own good?" "Of course," she sneered. "I've convinced him his father is irresponsible. That whiskey stunt was perfect. It made Robert look careless in front of everyone. Once Daniel signs, we can move the old man into care and take over completely." I staggered back from the door, bile rising in my throat. So this was their plan. Not just to shame me, not just to drive a wedge between me and my son, but to strip me of everything I had worked for, every sacrifice I had made. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my desk, replaying their words in my head. My eyes fell on the small recorder in my hand, its red light blinking. I had captured everything. Their voices, their laughter, their scheme. But that wasn't enough. I needed proof. Daniel couldn't deny. Documents, signatures, evidence no lie could cover, so I waited. A few days later, opportunity came. Claire left her study in a hurry, her laptop still open. My heart pounded as I slipped inside, terrified she might return. On the screen was an email draft addressed to her father's lawyer. Attached were scanned forms, property transfer agreements, requests for financial guardianship, even a draft of a petition for my placement in assisted living. My name was everywhere. My life, my home, my future, on the verge of being stolen with a few strokes of a pen. Hands trembling, I copied everything onto a USB drive I kept hidden in my pocket. By the time Claire returned, I was back in my room, breathing. Hard, the weight of her betrayal burning in my chest. Now I had it all. The recordings, the receipts, the documents. The trap was set. I didn't have to wait long for the perfect stage. Claire announced she was hosting a large dinner party. Neighbors, friends, extended family, and of course her father. She wanted to celebrate Daniel's success, but I knew better. This was her arena, her chance to parade her control. Fine, let her have her stage, because this time I would be the one pulling the curtain. The night of the gathering, I dressed simply in my best shirt and tie. As guests filled the house, laughter and clinking glasses echoed through the rooms. Claire floated among them like a queen, her father at her side, Daniel trailing behind like a shadow. I kept to myself, quiet as always. Let them think I was broken, defeated. It would make the blow even sharper. Halfway through dinner, Claire stood, raising her glass. "To family," she declared, "to success, and to a bright future built together." Applause filled the room. She smiled proudly, basking in the admiration. That's when I rose to my feet. "Excuse me," I said, my voice calm but firm. The room quieted, all eyes turning toward me. Claire's smile faltered. "I've been silent for too long," I continued, "but tonight you all deserve to hear the truth." From my pocket, I pulled out the small recorder. With a click, Claire's voice filled the room. Daniel just has to sign, and then we'll have control of everything, his accounts, his father's house, even the pension. Once that's done, the old man won't be able to touch a cent. Gasps rippled across the table. Daniel's head snapped toward his wife, shock written all over his face. Before she could speak, I reached into my jacket and laid a stack of printed documents on the table. "Here are the transfer forms," I said coldly. "Her emails to her. Father's lawyer. Her plan to steal everything I own and to lock me away in a nursing home." Claire's face drained of color. She lunged forward, grabbing the papers. "This is fake," she cried. "He's lying. He forged it." But Daniel was already scanning the documents, his hands shaking. These are your emails, Claire. These are your words." Her father tried to intervene, his voice booming. "This is nonsense. He's manipulating you." I looked directly at him. "No, Mr. Collins. You and your daughter have been manipulating my son for months. You thought you could destroy me quietly. But tonight, everyone sees the truth." The room erupted into whispers, gasps, accusations. Claire's mask cracked completely, her composure replaced by desperation. She clutched Daniel's arm, tears streaming down her face. "Daniel, please! He's twisting everything! You can't!" "Believe him over me." The room was frozen in silence. Daniel stared at the documents in his hands, his face pale, his lips trembling. Claire clung to his arm, her tears falling fast now, but they weren't tears of love, they were tears of desperation. "Daniel, please," she cried. "You know I love you. He's lying. He forged everything." But Daniel didn't answer her. He looked at me, then at the papers again, then back at her. His eyes, once filled with trust, were now clouded with doubt and anger. Finally he spoke, his voice shaking. "Claire, tell me it isn't true. Tell me you didn't plan to. Take everything from my father. Tell me these aren't your words." Claire's mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. Her father stepped forward, booming with false authority. "Daniel, don't be a fool. This man is trying to divide your family. He's jealous of your success, jealous of us. Don't let him poison you." But Daniel snapped, slamming the papers down on the table. "Enough! This is my wife's email. This is her voice on the recording. This isn't Dad's doing. This is yours. Both of you." Gasps filled the room again. Neighbors whispered. Relatives shook their heads. The proud, untouchable Collins family was being stripped bare in front of everyone. Claire's tears turned to rage. She shoved the papers away and screamed, "Fine, yes, I wanted control, because you're blind, Daniel. You waste your life trying to please a man who never gave you anything but hard lessons and guilt. I wanted more, better, and you were too weak to get it on your own." Her words echoed like a slap. Daniel's face crumbled. He stepped back from her, shaking his head. You've been using me all this time." He looked at his father-in-law. "And you encouraged it. You wanted my father's house, his savings, everything he built with his bare hands. You were both willing to throw him away like garbage to get it." Mr. Collins tried to recover, his tone dripping with arrogance. "It's just business, Daniel. Your father's old, stubborn. We were protecting your future." But Daniel wasn't buying it anymore. He turned to me, eyes brimming with regret. "Dad, I'm sorry. I should have listened to you. I let them turn me against you. I let them make me doubt you." My throat tightened, but I held my head high. "Son, the truth always comes out. That's all that matters now." Claire saw the last of her control slipping away. She lunged at Daniel, sobbing, "Don't leave me, Daniel. You can't. You're nothing without me." But Daniel pulled his arm free. His voice was steady, final. "No, Claire. I was nothing with you." Her scream pierced the room, but it was useless. The guests, once polite and admiring, now looked at her with disgust. People began murmuring about lawyers, fraud, even police. The Collins family name, once polished and proud, was now dripping with shame. I gathered the documents back into my folder and said quietly, "If necessary, I'll take this to the authorities. Fraud, theft, attempted coercion, you've left enough evidence to bury yourselves. Mr. Collins's face turned red, his hands clenching into fists. But he said nothing. He knew I was right. The rest of the evening unraveled quickly. Guests excused themselves, whispering as they left. Within minutes, the grand dinner party Claire had imagined as her victory celebration turned into the stage of her public humiliation. And for once, I didn't feel shame. I felt justice. The next day, Daniel filed for divorce. The documents I had collected gave him every advantage. Claire screamed, threatened, begged, but nothing worked. She left the house with nothing but a suitcase. Her pride shattered, her reputation in ruins. Her father, too, suffered. Word spread quickly of his involvement in the scheme. Business partners withdrew, clients vanished, and soon the man who once looked down on me with arrogance was drowning in financial ruin. As for me, I finally felt the weight lift off my shoulders. My home, my dignity, my bond with my son, restored. Daniel visited me often now, his tone softer, his eyes filled with guilt and love. "Dad," he said one evening, "I can't forgive myself for how blind I was." I placed a hand on his shoulder and shook my head. "Son, you don't need to punish yourself. Betrayal blinds even the wisest of men. What matters is that you see clearly now." For the first time in years, we sat together in peace, sipping coffee at my kitchen table, the same way we had when he was a boy. No lies, no poison, no whiskey bottle turning love into war, just father and son finally united. And in that silence, I realized something. The sweetest revenge isn't shouting or fighting. It's living long enough to see your enemies undone by their own greed and your family restored by the truth. The house felt different after Claire was gone. For the first time in years, there was no tension hanging in the air, no footsteps pacing angrily down the hall, no whispers plotting in the shadows. It was quiet, so quiet that at first it felt unnatural. But then, slowly, I realized it wasn't the silence of fear anymore. It was the silence of peace. I could sit at my table in the morning, drink my coffee in peace, and not worry about being mocked or insulted. I could walk through my own home without feeling like an intruder. For a man my age, that kind of peace is priceless. Daniel visited often now. The guilt in his eyes was heavy, but his presence itself was enough to ease my heart. One evening he sat across from me, staring into his cup before finally speaking. "Dad," he whispered, "I can't believe I let her turn me against you. I was blind. I doubted the one person who never doubted me." His voice cracked, and I saw the boy he used to be, the boy I raised with my bare hands, the boy I fought the world for. I reached across the table and placed my hand on his. "Son, you were in love. Love blinds the best of men. What matters isn't that you doubted me, it's that you found your way back." Tears filled his eyes, and he nodded. That moment meant more to me than any victory over Claire or her father. That was my real win, getting my son back. News of Claire's betrayal spread quickly. Friends, neighbors, even relatives who once admired the Collins family began to distance themselves. Mr. Collins' business suffered blow after blow. His arrogance, once his greatest weapon, became his downfall. He had built his empire on pride and manipulation, and now it was crumbling. I didn't celebrate his ruin, but I didn't mourn it either. He got exactly what he had sown. Claire herself faded into obscurity. I heard whispers that Victor, the man she had secretly leaned on, abandoned her the moment the money dried up. In the end, the woman who had tried to strip me of everything was left with nothing. That is karma. But for me, the greatest lesson wasn't about revenge. It was about silence. For too long, I believed staying quiet was the noble path, that enduring disrespect was better than causing conflict. But silence isn't always noble. Sometimes silence is surrender. Claire grew bold because I let her. She mistook my patience for weakness, my kindness for ignorance. What I learned, what I will carry with me for the rest of my days, is that respect must be defended. You can give love freely, you can give patience endlessly, but the moment someone disrespects you, the moment someone tries to strip you of your dignity, you must stand your ground. Now Daniel and I are rebuilding slowly but surely. We share dinners together, watch old movies, even sit in silence on the porch just enjoying the sunset. Simple things, but priceless things. The kind of peace I thought I had lost forever. And every now and then, Daniel brings me a small gift. Not out of guilt, but out of love. A book, a warm sweater, sometimes even a bottle of whiskey. But this time we drink it together as father and son. No lies, no schemes, just us. And as I raise my glass, I think back to that first bottle, the one that sparked the war, the whiskey. That became a weapon. And I smile because in the end, it wasn't whiskey that destroyed my family. It was greed. And greed always destroys itself. So if you're listening to my story, let me ask you, have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? Have you ever had your kindness twisted into weakness? If so, remember my words. Silence is not always strength. Sometimes the greatest strength is standing up, speaking out, and defending the respect you deserve. And if my story touched you, please share yours in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to thank you personally. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded. The truth always wins, and respect is worth more than gold. Because at the end of the day, money can be stolen, gifts can be twisted, but dignity, once defended, is unbreakable.